productivity YouTuber Mariana shares how she is able to juggle a rigorous 9-to-5 job plus a demanding YouTube channel. She shares all of her productivity secrets and tips and tricks and how she's able to stay sane and still accomplish so much. Well, welcome. My name is Erika Vieira. I'm a YouTube strategist and coach, having helped hundreds of women behind the scenes through my Zero to Influence YouTube Bootcamp, my YouTube 101 coaching, and my strategic channel management. And on this channel, I interview well-known female content creators where we together pull back the curtain to reveal what it's really like to be successful on YouTube. And now Mariana has over 600,000 YouTube subscribers, and Mariana shares a ton of great insights that I know you're gonna love. Enjoy this interview. Mwah. Well, hello, Mariana. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yes, you're the first person that I've interviewed that has the same last name as me. And the same spelling.
It's very unusual.
Yes, so two Vieiras in the house. So, but you're all the way in Portugal, and I'm here in San Diego. So, but very excited to have you on the show and to talk about your productivity channel, and especially to talk about how you stay productive as a YouTuber and juggling a full-time job. So I really want to dive into that topic. But before we get into it, why don't you share with our viewers and listeners what inspired you to get onto YouTube and when exactly that was?
Okay, so my first video was uploaded on 2015. Back at the time, I was a college student, so I was in law school. And I was searching for productivity videos because I needed that help for my own personal life. And I found out that there wasn't much about it. So I think that I started because I couldn't find what I wanted to find on the internet. And I thought that maybe if I studied about productivity and study tips in general, maybe I could fill that gap. So that was my main purpose in the beginning, was just fill that void in the YouTube community.
And you were in school at the time?
Yeah.
So studying law. And at what point did your channel kind of be this hobby to turning into something more serious?
So my first video was uploaded, I think it was on March or April 2015. And in the beginning, it didn't blow up at all. So I remember I had like 10 subscribers for almost a year, actually. So I just let that video sit on YouTube for a while. And when I came back to it a couple of months later, I noticed that there were a few comments of people telling me, can you do more videos about this subject? Because I can't find anything about note-taking and, time management techniques. And I was like, okay, so I remembered like, okay, there's this gap on YouTube, and I'm just being confirmed that the gap exists because people are asking for more content. And so I think it was in the summertime I had more time available, and I started making these videos on a weekly basis. And as I was saying, back then I had like 10 subscribers. Mm-hmm. So my only motivation was just keeping on making that content and seeing that positive feedback. And I started doing that on a weekly basis right from the start. So in the beginning, I had only one video published on my YouTube channel. And that sat for like maybe half a year without anything else. And then I started making weekly videos right off the bat. But yeah, that was it. And my YouTube channel just became profitable like at the end of 1 year. And like my idea of profit is probably very different from a lot of people. So my idea of profit was like, I couldn't even cover, the costs I had with filming. Because then I had to purchase a camera and so on. But I had some money at least. So that was like a whole year after I started my YouTube channel.
Well, you said that you had a period of time where you only had one video on your channel, right?
Yeah.
So how long was that?
Around 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then after 6 months, you decided to, because you had some feedback, you decided to upload weekly.
Yeah.
And then after about 6 more months, so a total of a year, you said that's when you felt like you were actually making some money on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly.
And then how many subscribers did you have after that first year? Do you remember?
After the first year, I think I had like 1,000 subscribers after a year.
Mm-hmm. Got it. And did you see at a point where your channel had some kind of tipping point where you had a big viral video, or has it been more consistent growth?
Oh, it is very consistent in growth. So I had a couple of videos that reached over 1 million views, and that's what I consider viral, because I think that my most viewed video only has 2.5 million views. So none of my videos got really, really viral. A few of them did have peaks in viewership and subscriber count. But yeah, it has been very consistent so far. So I've never experienced those big, my channel never blew up per se. So it was just very consistent. Of course, it had its highs and lows over the years, but it's a very consistent growth.
So I want to dive into productivity and how you're able to juggle both a successful YouTube channel. You have over 600 something thousand subscribers at this point. Yeah. And how often do you upload?
On a weekly basis, yeah.
Okay, once a week or twice a week, or how often?
Once a week.
Once a week. Got it. And you also are working full time, is that correct?
Yeah. Typical full-time job from 9 to 5.
So what do you do full time?
I'm a legal advisor.
Okay.
I work in the financial law / banking sector.
Wow. And in addition to that, you do offer consulting as well, like coaching consulting for productivity.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I want to know, and I'm sure everybody...
It's a lot to manage.
Yeah, it's a lot. But you're an expert at this, right? You're an expert at productivity and scheduling. So I would love to know, how are you able to manage all of that? Well, that's a broad question, but let's start with, what does your average week look like?
Okay, so first of all, I have to completely block all of the time I have to spend working. So that's from 9 to 5. I also have to block out the time I have to spend commuting to work. So basically, I get out of the house at 7 a.m. and usually I get home around 6 p.m. So everything else needs to be done before 7 a.m. or after 6 p.m. So it takes a lot of micromanaging. I think I don't have a lot of time in my day where I'm like, oh, I have nothing to do, so I'm going to sit on the couch and watch whatever. I really have to micromanage my time to make everything count and everything work. And of course, that means that some hours of my weekends can't be spent just with leisure. I really have to work on the weekends too. I try to separate my personal life and my professional / business as much as possible. But sometimes that really isn't possible. So it takes a lot of communication to be able to juggle everything perfectly. And I also had to learn when and how to delegate some things. So when I started working a full-time job, one of the things I had to do was just hiring a video editor, because I wasn't able to edit my videos if I had a full-time job. So what I do now is basically researching for videos, writing the script, voicing the script. Right now I appear a little bit more on camera, so that means I always have to film the A roll and the B roll, and I also have to research and gather any kind of B roll footage, like stock imagery, any kind of images I want to show on videos. So there's a lot to juggle, and what I try to do is keep a very disciplined schedule for myself. So I always know exactly what I have to do for YouTube. I always know exactly what task I should be working on at every single moment. And I know that if I fall off track with that, the video I should be publishing will not be published when it should be published. So there's a bit of history, and of course I'm now way more used to this than I was before. In the beginning, it was very hard to juggle everything. But right now, I think that when you get very used to this, to like managing this like 2 jobs at the same time, you get better at it. But it's hard. But it takes a lot of self-discipline. And of course, besides discipline, you really have to be passionate about what you're doing. And I'm very passionate about YouTube. So it's definitely never something that I felt like, okay, maybe I have to leave it for my full-time job. That never even crossed my mind.
Did you ever feel pressure to do more than 1 video a week?
I mean, not really. And I think I never felt that pressure because I think it's also because of my type of content. If I was following myself, so if I was a completely different person, I was following my channel, I don't think I would like to watch 2 productivity videos per week, because I would feel very overwhelmed. Too much information. Sometimes when I consider this, I consider it in the opposite way. Like, should I be publishing every single week, or should I be publishing like 2 or 3 times per month? So never the other way around.
That's interesting because it really helps to know your audience. And
yeah, sometimes it's very hard to know your audience too, because I was talking with my manager the other day, because my audience just keeps evolving, right? I think that I knew a couple of years ago exactly what my audience wanted, and I think that now it's getting a little bit harder because I have like this kind of mixture of audiences in my channel. I have people who are clearly still studying in high school or college level, and then I have people who have already finished college and they want something else from my channel. So juggling those two components is getting, a little bit hard now, but it all takes is a little bit of brainstorming and planning.
What did I don't know if your manager gave you advice on this or what your plans are. What are you planning to do to figure that out?
So I think I want to broaden my scope a little bit. No, I want to keep doing the productivity thing, but maybe go a little bit more into the lifestyle part of it. And I also want to keep my channel a little bit more natural. So my channel for a while now, when I say for a while now, I mean like for 5 whole years, was mainly like B-roll and voiceover. So I never appeared on camera. So my channel was a bit like, it was not very personal. No one could really relate to me because people never saw me, and that's what I'm trying to shift this year. So this year I'm trying to appear a little bit more on camera. I'm trying to talk a little bit more about my personal experiences, and what I think now is that I'll have kind of a more organic growth in which, as I go through different life experiences, I'm going to take everyone else, my subscribers, with me on that journey. And that's how I'm trying to make my channel, a little bit more flexible in terms of content.
Yeah, that's great. So how many hours a week do you spend on your YouTube channel?
So right now, let me think. I do believe that I spend at least 15 hours a week on YouTube, but that can really go from 15 to like 25 hours a week.
Yeah, and that's even with outsourcing the editing.
Yeah, that's without outsourcing the editing.
Is there anything else that you outsource with your YouTube channel?
If you count like having a manager to negotiate sponsorships and so forth as outsourcing, I have that, so I don't have to talk with brands directly anymore, which is fantastic for me. But besides that, no, there's nothing else I outsource.
Hey, so I
spend the most of my time writing and researching. So that takes like probably 10 to 12 hours of my week. It's writing and researching for a script.
Wow. Yeah, I was going to ask, what takes you the most time?
Yeah, that's definitely it.
So I would say it depends on the type of niche, but a lot of people don't spend that much time planning their videos. Have you always had that much research and scripting involved with your videos?
Not in the beginning. I think I started doing that when my channel got a little bit more serious and my audience got a little bit wider. So I was like, okay, I have so many eyes looking at me. I really have to research this properly. Because once again, my channel is not about my personal experience on anything so far. So I really need to research things. And I had some of my videos which were based on entire books I read. And maybe I spent like 10, 12, 20 reading that book, and it was just summarized in a 10-minute video. So I try as much as possible to talk about things I know of, and I always avoid topics that I feel like I'm not qualified to talk about.
Yeah. And when you come up with a new video idea, what does that look like in regards to planning it? So take me through the week on, do you have specific days that you work on your channel, or is it because you're working, every day you work on it for a couple hours? Is it the bulk of it on Saturdays? What does that look like for you?
I don't have like very specific, I do have a workflow, but it's fluid. What I know is by Tuesday or Wednesday, everything needs to be finished so I can send everything over to my editor. So what that means is usually on the following day, so on Thursday, I'll start working on next week's video. And so for the first day, what I usually do is basically, I always have the next topic planned. So right now we are in December. I know exactly what every single one of my videos will be until April 2022. So I plan like in quarters or semesters always. So I know that in an overview, like at a, looking at everything I'm going to talk about, everything is spaced out correctly and I'm not overlapping topics and everything interconnects nicely. So that's why I plan like 3 months, 4 months, 5 months ahead. So that also gives me a lot of freedom, because when I get to that Thursday and I need to start researching and writing, I know what the topic is. So I don't have to spend a lot of time thinking about the topic. So usually when I reach Thursday, I jump right into research and I try to outline the video as much as possible. So what will I start with? What's the next topic going to be? How I like subdivide this into subtopics. So the first day is usually research plus outlining, and then I'll start really writing the script on a Friday, usually.
Wow. And then when are you filming it?
Right now I have to film on the weekends, and that's because, at least here in Portugal now, when I leave the house, there's no light. When I get home at 6 p.m., there's no light. So I cannot film during the week. I definitely have to film on the weekends. And what I'm trying to do right now is like filming in bulk. So I try to film like at least 2 videos every weekend, so I can always have videos prepared ahead if something goes wrong. Because if I have to dedicate, for instance, a full weekend to my family and I can't film, I know that, like, past Mariana was like, okay, I've got this covered because I already have the next week's video available because I filmed it in advance. So I always try to film at least 2 videos every single weekend. I always try to save it for Saturday morning because that means that I'll be free for the rest of Saturday and Sunday as well. And then after that, I try to upload everything for my editor on the weekend, or at least on Monday morning. And then she'll edit everything from Monday to Wednesday. Although, as I told you, sometimes that gets like, instead of me being able to do that on a Monday, I'll do that on a Tuesday or on a Wednesday if there's a little bit of fallback. But yeah, so usually everything needs to be ready at least for Wednesday. Is
that your upload day, Wednesday or Thursday?
No, it's usually on Saturday. Although I had kind of an erratic schedule lately. There was a lot of stuff going on lately for like a few months. But yeah, it's usually on a Saturday, and she gets the video ready by Wednesday so I can send it to sponsors, for instance, so I can review it, so she can make any kind of, edits that I require, and everything is ready by Thursday or Friday.
So in a way, with your schedule being in Portugal, because I know right now for you it's around 6 p.m. here in San Diego, it's like 10:30 a.m., you could kind of work in the evenings or interact with people or your manager, and if they're in the States, it's actually their work day.
Yeah, exactly. So usually when I have meetings with my manager or the strategy team or anything of the sort, it's always after 6 p.m. Always, without any kind of exception. Usually all of my coaching sessions are also during this time, because I either coach someone from the States and they're available at this time, or I coach someone from Europe and they already like left work by this time, so it's also their optimal time.
Yeah. How late on the weekdays are you working, and then what time do you go to bed?
Oh, I'm once again very disciplined with that. So the latest I do coaching sessions on a weekday is at 9 p.m. So the latest I go to is like finishing the coaching at 10 p.m. So I always go to bed at 10:30 p.m. And that's unusual for me. Like, even coach someone from 9 to 10. Usually I save all of my sessions until 8 p.m.
Wow. But you always are in bed by 10:30.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at what time do you wake up? 6 a.m. Wow. And then it's pretty much your entire day is spent working or working on your YouTube.
Yeah, during my weekdays, that's pretty much it. Definitely. I try to have a really good lunch break. So my lunch breaks are almost like religious for me, because that's when I can really unwind from the rest of the day. And also, I do believe in what I call active resting or active leisure, which is when we need to take a break instead of just scrolling through our phones, really do something that we really love to do. And that makes the work part of your day so much better, because when you had to take a break, and I do take breaks very often, I do something that I really like to do. Like I read a book, I call someone from my family, I watch a really good YouTube video, or I watch a series that I'm enjoying. So I never try to do like this passive resting thing where I'm just spending time doing nothing, but I'm really not enjoying myself either. And my weekends are mostly free as well. And once again, my weekends are religious for me. So I try to enjoy them as much as possible.
Yeah. Do you see people falling into the trap of their phones distracting them from being productive?
Yeah, definitely a lot. That's one of the most common issues in the productivity community, and one of the things that we tend to focus the most, because it's such an easy trap to fall into.
Yeah, there's so many of these like productivity phone apps, but I try not. I like, I have like my little planner, and because I found that when I personally, when I was using productivity apps, then you get distracted by what else is on your phone. But then I see a lot of productivity channels recommending these apps. So I always wonder, like, what's the trick to using apps but not being distracted on your phone?
I mean, I don't think there's a trick. I think there's a shift in mindset. I like to think of my phone not only like as a productivity machine, because let's not say that everything has to do with productivity, but I like to see it more as a useful thing for me than a thing that makes me feel distracted and has power over me. So my phone is very, customized in the sense that it gives me immediate access to everything that is productivity related, or everything that is very specific in terms of the kind of leisure that it provides me. So I hide all of my social media apps, for instance, in a folder that's like at the end of my home screen that I can't even see it. I mute basically everything in my phone. So I'm only notified right now of like phone calls and text messages from very specific people, and everything else is muted. I don't get notifications from anything else. I have set very specific times to check on email and to check on social media. Once again, this has a lot to do with self-discipline, but that's what I try to do. So I do use productivity apps. Specifically, I use Notion a lot. I basically plan all of my life with Notion right now, and Google Calendar. But yeah, I think it has to do with the mindset. Once you realize that your phone is there to help you, as long as it helps you, it's a great tool. But as long as you feel like you're trapped by your phone, that's when you need to start taking action about it.
Yeah, definitely. So what are some of the big mistakes that you see people make when it comes to their productivity? Like, and even, with a YouTube channel, or trying to juggle something like a YouTube channel with a full-time job?
I mean, I don't think I see a lot of mistakes specifically. I see usually a lack of purpose. And I do believe when people lack purpose, everything just starts falling out. It's like a big snowball. What I see is a lot of people who are not aligned with their values. And when they're not aligned with their values, it's very hard to be productive, because, basically the reason why we procrastinate, it's because we have this part of our brain which is based on instincts, and we have this part of our brain which is very rational, and both of them are constantly battling each other. And we are prone to be creatures that are lazy by nature. And that's because our brain, like our instincts, tell us that being lazy is good for you because it saves your energy, so it protects you, right? So our rational part is the one that tells that instinctive part of our brain, like, no, I really have to work on this because, X, Z, and Y. And what I think happens with a lot of people is that because they don't have a specific goal or a specific purpose, they can't defeat that instinctive part of their brains because they have no reason to defeat that part. And I think it really starts from there. When you hear yourself really well, and you know your inner voice, and you know exactly what you should be working towards and what you are striving to do, everything starts falling into place very quickly. So I think it's like, 60 to 70% motivation and 30 to 40% techniques and methods and so forth.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I do really believe that the motivation is there when you're really aligned with what you're doing. And it's like, because I get people asking me like, oh, how do you get so much done? I'm like, I don't know, I just do. Like, it's like, how do you stay motivated? I'm like, I just am. I don't know. Like, I just am. And it's like, well, you know, of course, if I think about it and all that, like, I think a lot of it is being really like aligned with what you're doing on a daily basis. Is that what you're finding? Because I know you work with, you know, professionals and people like that on coaching. Is that what you find?
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the biggest things I find. I also find that people usually don't have, you know, they do have good expectations for themselves, but they are not very realistic. And this usually goes both ways. So they don't have realistic expectations because they think they're capable of much more than they are. They're being overly ambitious with themselves. The best example of this is people that want to start like 10 habits at the same time. So this is a huge mistake. We are not able to start in being perfect at 10 new habits. You can't like, you know, it can't be like 1st of January and you're like, okay, so now I'm going to start working out, meditating, doing morning pages, having this great morning routine. That's impossible. You need to start with one habit at a time. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely one of the mistakes. And then other people are the other way around. So they believe they can't do anything. They're not capable of anything. And they quit like when they experiment something new, they quit like 1 or 2 days after they experiment something instead of trying to build on that with a lot of time. So yeah, so I do believe that people manage expectations wrong the both ways. That's one of the things I see the most, besides the thing that I told before about people not following their purpose and their values. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest problems.
So if you're working with somebody and they're really struggling with their productivity and you're finding that they're in a job that they hate or they're in a career that they hate, and rather than, you know, trying to help them, you know, with techniques, do you kind of tell them like, hey, you might want to like consider a career change? I mean, you know, like what's your approach for that?
Yeah, so I never go into that specifically, and I think that's because of my particular background. So I live in a country where it's very hard to change your jobs, and people work a lot and study a lot to get a job that doesn't really pay that well. So in Portugal, we are really not well paid when we compare it to any job, for instance, in the States. So what happens is, because we don't have the same flexibility in changing jobs and our market is not as strong, I do live in a place where I would never tell anyone like, think about quitting your job, because I live in a place where that's not very easy to do, and there aren't those many opportunities. So I always feel a little bit like skeptical when giving that advice to anyone, because sometimes I do believe that if we keep changing jobs, for instance, maybe we will not find our true happiness because of that. So what I do try to make people think about is, once again, where do your values lie? And also, what do you really want to do? Why are you unhappy? Are you really unhappy with your job, or are you unhappy with anything else? And how do you think, you know, being better at productivity will help you? Yeah, and I think that's one of the most important things for people to think. Why do they want to quit? Is it their job or is it themselves? So I always try to keep away from the quit your job mentality, the mindset, but I do think it's because I live in a very different background.
That's so interesting. So then if somebody comes to you and they're unhappy in their job and they're unproductive, what do you recommend that they do?
So first of all, I try to make them find out what they like to do. And that's also something that a lot of people never really realized, they never did, was like, what do I enjoy doing? I think that the fact that we live in a world where everything is about tech, and we have Netflix and we have computers, it's easier for us to go watch a series and actively pursuing a specific hobby, for instance, that forces us to work with our hands or something, rather than just sitting on the couch and see what the TV has to offer you. So one of the things I do is like, what do you actually like to do? And some people tell me, I have no idea. I'm like, okay, so you need to find some inspiration, motivation for that. Yeah. Sometimes we it takes years for us to find exactly what we like to do. I think I'm personally still learning what I like to do, and I feel like I'm understanding a little bit more about myself every single day. And I think that's very important. So find what you want to do, and that makes everything so much better. A lot of people come to me like, I want to have a better morning routine. And then I ask what their morning routine looks like. And they say things like, okay, I get out of bed and I go immediately to my job, or I get out of bed and I start making household chores. I'm like, why would you like to get out of bed to do something that you really don't like to do? So usually when I recommend someone to rebuild a morning routine is to start with an activity that they really, really enjoy. For instance, if you are a reader and you love reading, just get out of bed and start reading. If you like video games, I see absolutely no problem in getting out of bed in the morning and play video games for like 20 minutes before you start your day. So being excited to do something for me is very important because it completely boosts your motivation and your productivity in the long run.
Oh, that's really interesting. But I'm thinking about the person with the video games. How do they stop themselves from doing it too long, But yeah, that's really, really, really interesting, because one of the things that I find is that with YouTube, it tends to actually be an outlet for people that don't enjoy what they do full time, right? They're in this career, they went to school, maybe they're in debt from it, maybe maybe they've been in it for so long and it gives them a good income, but they're not loving it, and then YouTube becomes this creative outlet for them. To be able to kind of like explore that side. Do you find that like having a side hustle or hobby helps with that?
Yeah, it does. I think it helps because it provides you two completely different mindsets. So I always have the mindset of being someone who works for someone else, and I receive orders and I have to work taking into account what other people tell me to do. Which can be great, because I think that one of the biggest problems with YouTube and any business in general is that you're always a decision maker.
Yes.
And that's really exhausting,
yes,
right? That's
so
exhausting. So sometimes I just like to being told what to do and, take a break from that mindset of I'm always responsible for everything that happens to my YouTube channel. And then when I'm at work and I'm like, I'm really mad because someone told me something I didn't like to hear, or someone gave me an order that I really don't want to do, or do a kind of work that I really don't like. I'm like, oh, at least I have YouTube, because with YouTube I'm independent and I do what I want to do. So I really like that division in mindset. When I'm tired of one of them, I have the other, and back and forth. So that really allows me to rest between tasks and between jobs, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's a really, I never thought about that. And it's interesting because I do one-on-one YouTube coaching, and I work with a lot of established creators, people that do this full time. And I've worked with some people for 2+ years, right? And I find that I've been told before, and now it's like clicking with me now that you said that people say like, I just love working with you. Could you just tell me what to do, like tell me what's on the thumbnail, or tell me here, or like, tell me what's the best video to do, or and granted they have a lot of decision making to do, but I think me being there and being like, no, don't do that video, that's not a good video, or it's kind of giving them a little bit of that break, maybe. I don't know, that's really interesting.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a break to me.
Yeah. And I have another question. So why do you have a very successful YouTube channel, over, 600,000 subscribers. You work with brands. I know I saw on your channel you work with several different brands. You have your coaching. I think you even have a Patreon. Or is that the same as your coaching, or is that different?
It works both ways. So if you subscribe to specific tiers on Patreon, you get access to coaching. But if you want coaching without Patreon, it's also possible.
Yeah. Okay. So you have all that going on, and then you have this 9-to-5 job. Why do you still have the 9-to-5 job?
That's a great question. To be real, that's a question I ask myself every single day. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I think I have a 9-to-5 job. First of all, because I studied really hard for it for many years.
It's hard to get up.
Secondly, because I do enjoy what I do. It's like, it's not only something that I do just to get a paycheck. Definitely not because of a paycheck. So it's something that I enjoy to do. I also enjoy the component of, having an office job. I know a lot of people hate it. I actually kind of like it. I like the kind of routine that it gives me. And also because, and this is kind of like of a meta issue for me, but I feel like it's a bit hard for me to tell people how they should be productive if I'm not living a life that is similar to them. So this is like the most difficult question for me. So personally, I have a lot of issues with taking advice from people who don't have a life that is similar to mine. So if I, hear productivity advice from someone who doesn't work a 9-to-5 job, my immediate reaction is like, okay, this is all fun and games, but how do I do that if I have to work from 9 to 5? And then I have to commute 1 hour to my house, and I have to wake up at 6 a.m. to, leave the house at 7 a.m. Like, how can I have like a 4-hour morning routine if I have 1 hour in the morning? Yeah. Or else I have to wake up like at 3:30 a.m., right?
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, so I think that one of the things I do, one of the reasons why I have a 9-to-5 job is because I want to stay accountable for the advice I give. I want to make sure it works. I don't want to give advice from a position of privilege. And when I say privilege, I mean privilege in terms of time, because a lot of productivity has to do with time management. I can only know how to manage my time and tell people how they should manage their time, or advise them in that sense, if I have at least some of the challenges that everyone does. So that's one of the reasons. So it's a big experiment for me as well.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Even though, like, how long have you had this full-time job though with the...
Since 2019.
Okay. So, I mean, it's been about 2 years, so it hasn't been like forever. Because it's like at some point, can you say, okay, well, I am coming from experience because I did it for several years. So it's like, do you have to be reliving it every day to be able to advise on it when you have lived it,
I don't know if my situation will change in the future. That's something, once again, I like to reevaluate my life like every single day. I really don't like to feel like I'm doing something just because I'm comfortable with it. So I like to rethink things very frequently. I don't know if my full-time job situation will change. I don't think it will change for now, at least. But yeah, it's something that I do think about very often though.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I asked that question at the beginning, because, I think a lot of people feel pressure to have several videos a week, 2 videos a week, or even 3 videos a week. Obviously, you've done quite well with doing 1 video a week. I mean, you have a very large channel, but, maybe it just works for you. You say, hey, 1 video a week, it's plenty. I don't need to do more. So this routine is working for you at this moment. I think why a lot of people, personally, just in my experience, that a lot of people end up quitting their job is they feel that their job is holding them back from doing what they want on YouTube. Do you feel like that's the case for you?
I don't feel that right now, but who knows if I will feel that in the future.
Yeah.
There are things that are hard to juggle, definitely. So losing a bit of my independence for me is one of the hardest thing in juggling a full-time job and a YouTube channel at the same time. Yeah. So every time, for instance, I gave a speaking event last week where I talked to a group of students from a local university, and I had to ask permission for that. And if they didn't give me permission, I wouldn't be able to go. So that's, for me, that's one of the hardest things where I start thinking like, okay, is this job becoming a barrier in terms of your channel growth and my career in general? So once again, that's why I have to juggle this very, I have to think about this every single day. Yeah. And I have to reevaluate the situation every single day, because I don't want to be in a situation that is going to harm me in the future. Or causing me burnout or something of the sort. So I will keep it as long as it's benefiting me. And when I feel like it's getting too much, then I'll probably change my plans.
Yeah. Wow. That's so interesting. I think it's fascinating what you're doing. And, in a way, it's like you're walking the walk, not just talking the talk, with you yourself having to manage so much. So that's, thank you for sharing all of that with me. Now, here at the last part of the interview, we're going to go through real quickly the same questions that I asked everybody that's been on the show. Are you ready for that?
Okay, perfect. Let's
Awesome.
go.
Okay. The first question is, what do you love most about being on YouTube?
I love the independence and the voice it gives me. I can talk about anything I like to talk about, and I love to see the reaction of people. And when I get emails with feedback telling me this was so useful because I applied it in this situation, this situation. So yeah, definitely feedback and independence.
Yeah. What is your number one struggle with YouTube?
Adapting to an ever-changing algorithm. That's my biggest struggle.
Yeah. I mean, you've been on for a while. How do you adapt to it? What do you do?
Well, so at least I have the help of my manager who knows a lot about it. So that's perfect. But overall, it's just like an ever-changing process for me, and that means planning and replanning. I'm from the time where YouTube, canceled your channel if you didn't upload on a weekly basis, for instance. I'm from the time where likes really said something about your videos. Now I'm from the time where watch time is everything. So, this changes on a yearly basis, and it's very difficult to, process and reevaluate every single thing all of the time, especially because you start getting comfortable with, a process and a workflow, and suddenly you're like, okay, I have to change every single thing again because the algorithm changed. So for me, that's the most difficult part, because you can't get feedback on the algorithm and you can't ask the algorithm, right? Like, why aren't my videos performing? You can't ask it. So it's just like this kind of, you're blindfolded and trying to do your best, and you have no feedback from the platform where you publish your videos.
Yeah. What is your highest viewed video, and how much did you make from it?
So my highest viewed video is actually one of the first videos I ever made. So it was published in 2015. It has 2.5 million views. And in terms of lifetime revenue, I generated around $3,000. Yeah. So I have everything in euros, and I don't remember the specific, the exchange rate, but it's around $3,000.
That's a little amount for over, like, what you said, 1.5 million views?
2.5.
Oh, 2.5. Where is your audience based out of?
Mostly United States, but the second country is India.
Oh, do you know what percentage is from India?
Around 20%, 30% of viewers.
That could be why.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, because like AdSense, really, certain countries pay certain amounts, and in the U.S. it's the highest usually, but I know India, the AdSense can be quite low in India, but yeah, that's why you want to take a look at like where your audience is from. If you were to start over right now with your YouTube channel, what, if anything, would you do different?
That's a great question. One of the things I would definitely do differently would be, but once again, that's because the algorithm has changed. But I definitely would not upload a video if I wasn't 100% happy with it. And it's something that I did do very often in the beginning, was just upload for the sake of uploading. And I regret that now, because I've actually unlisted some of those videos, not because there was anything specifically wrong with them, but because I knew that I wasn't giving my all when I was doing them.
Yeah.
So that was definitely something I would do differently.
Yeah. What is your favorite video you created that's on your channel?
Also a great question. I do think it's actually a recent video from this year in which I discuss how, your cycle, like your menstruation cycle, affects your productivity. I think it's something that no one ever talks about, and it completely does affect your productivity. I do believe that people have a lot of feelings of guilt attached to it. And besides guilt, also like a feeling of shame. And I think that's terrible. So I really tried to shed some light on that issue. This year, I felt like I was brave enough to do it in front of a camera. So, that bravery that it took for me to talk about that, because it meant a lot of research on my part. And that's something I'm very afraid of doing my research incorrectly. So I think that's one of the videos I enjoy doing the most.
Yeah, it's a really interesting topic. I remember exploring that topic a little bit, and it's true. Like as women, we go through cycles, and there's certain times based on hormones and all that where, you're more you're more productive, and times where you're not. And,
you're not,
yeah. So
and it's perfectly normal.
Oh, I definitely want to watch that video. It sounds like a good one. What are the big mistakes you see aspiring YouTube creators making?
Maybe following the trends a little bit too much, and not finding their own voices. I think that playing like the copycat game is very, I mean, no guilt or blame attached to that. I think that when you're starting from nothing, it's very overwhelming to start with a very particular voice or very particular kind of content. But doing what everyone is doing is also what's going to make your channel never grow. And if I could say, like, what's the thing that made my channel grow like it did during all of these years, I will never say it was the quality, because I started with like a compact camera that my dad had buried in a closet. So it definitely was not the content, it was not the quality. I think it was the fact that it was this gap, this void on YouTube, which was productivity content. We had like 3 creators talking about it. We had no one else. So I was talking about something that was usually not very discussed on YouTube. So that's what I think sometimes people don't do. They try to do what everyone else is doing. Which, you know, for some people it's great, and they actually build a successful channel out of it. But a lot of people never get discovered because there's way too much competition.
Yeah, so true. Any video that you were particularly excited about that did not perform well on your channel?
Oh, for instance, this one that I just mentioned. So the cycle video really did not perform at all. It's actually one of the worst videos I published this year in terms of performance. Yeah, which is actually confusing to me. I was actually discussing this yesterday with the strategy team. I mean, I have like 70% of my audience, they're female. So there's a lot of women in my audience. And I when I was playing that video, I was so sure it would be a successful video in my channel, because I felt it would resonate with a lot of people. And a lot of people would identify with that problem. But then the data I had and the performance I had was really low. So it was very disappointing for me in a way, but at the same time, I knew that it was a good video.
Yeah.
And if one person came from it or felt better themselves because they saw it, that was already a victory for me.
Yeah. What did the strategy team tell you to do? Did they tell you to like switch out the thumbnail and title and kind of present it differently?
Yeah, so that was one of the things they told me to do, and I did it, and nothing really happened. So for some of my videos that happened. So the switching thumbnail and title combo,
can really help,
that's important for some videos, but for that one, I do think it was the topic.
Yeah, that's the thing. You know, your click-through rate is 3 elements: your title, your thumbnail, and the topic. And sometimes you can see a really bad thumbnail, and like the title's like okay, but the topic is just it just grabs people, right? So, yeah, very, very interesting. What is the biggest opportunity you got as a result of your YouTube channel?
The biggest opportunity for me was definitely, I mean, I wasn't able to speak a lot in events because of the pandemic too, but I really enjoyed all of the opportunities that were given to me in terms of speaking to an audience. Like in person, speaking in schools, for instance. I really enjoy that, and I also really enjoy doing coaching and productivity coaching. I find it amazing, and I know that I would never be able to do it if it wasn't for a productivity YouTube channel that gives me the audience, and it gives me not the relevance, but it gives me the voice. I tell people, okay, maybe she knows what she's talking about, so I can schedule a one-on-one meeting with her. So definitely coaching and public speaking. Those are the 2 things that I like to do the most, and I was only able to do them because of my YouTube channel.
That's awesome. What is your superpower that you think has led to your success?
Definitely micromanaging my time and being able to do everything that I do and being consistent.
So when you say micromanage, what is it, like time blocking where like every single minute of the day is just planned out?
Yeah. If I didn't micromanage my time very well, I would never be able to be consistent on YouTube. And if I wasn't consistent on YouTube, I think that by now I would have probably dropped it.
Yeah, You have to. I think YouTube success, a lot of it is in the planning.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. There's a lot of it that's inspiration based, but I think that there's even more of it that have to do with researching and planning and doing very analytical tasks.
Yeah, I agree. And I think for a lot of creatives that can be difficult. Because a lot of creativity is about being like inspired and acting on the inspiration and like, let me grabbing the camera, right? But like, I think that's why it is so difficult, because you need that inspiration, but you also need to be consistent.
Yeah, I mean, taking that into account, I do believe I'm like in the minority. I really like the planning and the analytical part of it, and sometimes I struggle more with the inspiration.
Yeah.
So I'm not the kind of person that picks up a camera and starts filming. I really need to think things through, and I think it's because of specific personality.
Yeah, I'm actually the same way too. I like to really think things through. If I were to like pick up a camera and start talking, I just wouldn't know what to say. I'd be like, that would be me.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I never made, a vlog in my life.
Yeah.
What would I say?
Yeah, that's how I feel.
I'm like, oh, here I'm working and I'm doing this.
Yeah.
But then I mean, why is it relevant for people, right? So vlogging is not for me because I'm not a very spontaneous person.
Yeah, and that's why I think, YouTube is not one size fits all. Like, some people are amazing vloggers. Like, they just can pick out something and it's interesting, and they've got the editing, and some people are better with sit down videos. Some people are better. And so that's why this podcast and these interviews are so interesting, because everybody's journey is so different. Why do you think people enjoy watching your videos?
I think they like watching my videos because they feel a little bit more motivated to do something and believe I think so at least, that they're capable of doing something for themselves. So I do think it's like a motivation boost for my viewers.
Yeah. And last question, what is your number one piece of advice that you would tell someone who's just starting out on YouTube?
Find your own voice on YouTube and being consistent. Try to do your best, but also pat yourself on the back when you're not able to do your best. Because as we were saying, there's a lot of analytical tasks to it, but there's also some inspiration attached to it. And inspiration is something that you have to work for, but it isn't, you can't be constantly inspired. But YouTube does require some consistency. So those are two things that go hand in hand, but at the same time, they really don't work together sometimes. So, taking it with a lot of grace, it's very important to keep doing it and be consistent with time.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. It has been such a pleasure, Mariana, talking to you and getting to know you better. I feel like there were just so many insightful value bombs that were dropped in this interview. So I know people are going to absolutely love it. So for people that aren't familiar with you and your channel and they want to check you out, where can they find you?
So they just have to go to YouTube and search for Mariana's Corner. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to relaunch my Instagram page, which was abandoned for 2 years. So they can also find me there.
Awesome.
But yeah, I'm not present in a lot of social media platforms right now. So YouTube will be the main platform where I speak to everyone and I update everyone on what's going on. Amazing.
We will have that linked in the description below and in the show notes. And thank you so much, Mariana. This has been such a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was lovely. Thank you.
Bye. I hope you enjoyed that interview and you learned a lot from it. Now, if you have a YouTube channel or considering starting a YouTube channel that you're serious about growing and you want the best of the best when it comes to personalized feedback, advice, and up-to-the-minute YouTube strategy, then consider my Zero to Influence YouTube Bootcamp for Women. I have been running this bootcamp since 2018, and we have hundreds upon hundreds of very successful students that have gone through the program. And I can go on and on about the YouTube bootcamp, but I want you to hear it directly from some of the women themselves.
I feel so lucky that I got to do Erika's bootcamp.
Before joining Erika's bootcamp, my channel was all over the place. I didn't know what I was talking about.
I would hear people say that I need to find my why and my voice and my audience and understand my target audience, but I never felt like I really understood what that meant.
Erika helped me come up with YouTube video ideas. She helped me with consistency. She helped me to interpret my analytics.
I started with 12,000 subscribers and now I have over 50,000 and it is growing rapidly.
My channel has grown almost 100,000 subscribers.
I definitely wouldn't have gotten to this place in such a short amount of time without Erika's bootcamp.
What makes Erika special is that she has been talking to and analyzing YouTube channels for years, and that has given her this bank of knowledge to pull from.
I'm constantly asking her questions about YouTube. I'm asking her advice about my YouTube channel.
Taking the Zero to Influence YouTube Bootcamp was one of the best
decision I could have ever made for myself, for my channel, for my own personal growth as a human being. I could not be happier.
I love that it has reinvigorated me in such a beautiful way. So I am so happy that I've joined.
You're crazy not to hire her. Get on it. All right.